Let's talk about Fourth Wing, the viral sensation that has surprised the whole book community, conquering the hearts of both adult fantasy and fantasy romance readers alike. It currently has 647,000 ratings, which is crazy, insane. You know Brandon Sanderson, the fantasy king? Yeah, his most popular book, Mistborn, has 631,000 ratings. Way of Kings, the first book in the Stormlight series, has the same rating as Fourth Wing. What? If you go to the fantasy romance, A Court of Thorns and Roses has 4.20 stars. A Court of Mist and Fury, the most popular and loved, 4.64 stars. And what makes it all so amazing is that this book was released this year. I did a small experiment in May when it was released and tracked the rise of it. 10 days after the release, almost 10,000 people read it. 20 days, 20,000 people. And here's where things start to be interesting, because 1 month after the release, almost 100,000 people already read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And the whole book community is holding their breath to discover if Book 2, Iron Flame, is going to keep that flame alight. So let's get into a deep dive summary of this whole story so that you don't need to read all 500 pages. But before we do that, let's go to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community with thousands of online classes and members who come together to find inspiration and take the next step to their creative journey. There are a wide variety of topics that you can learn and get inspired from design to illustration, photography, reading, speed, and also productivity. They even have a creator-focused career in case you want to give the creator side a try. And what I really like about Skillshare is that in one hand I can learn by doing. So it's not that I just will see each of those classes and that's it, but rather that I'm able to create a project, to share it, and to get feedback on it. And also there's this amazing community that puts together teachers and other members like you to receive feedback and just to create these connections and overall get better. In my case, I really like Ali Abdal's productivity classes. I am absolutely obsessed with them. Very concise, useful, and I am right now enrolling in 2 other ones, one for reading speed and another one helping me edit better. So if all of this sounds good to you, give Skillshare a try. Just browse the website, and if you want to get a free month trial, just click the link down below, because the first 500 people that click the link that you have in the description will have 1 month free. Now let's get ready and start with Fourth Wing. Our story begins with Conscription Day, the day when 20-year-olds from across the Kingdom of Navarre select the branch of military service to defend against the invasion attempts, and our girl Violet is approaching the General Soringel's office. Let me know that this amazing art, it's not mine, so thank you to the rightful artist. I will link all of the information down in the description so that you can also check that out. We are at the Vizgayath War College, a cruel place where every Navarian of age will train for the next 3 years. There are 4 different branches you can choose from: healers, scribers, infantry, or riders. We quickly learn that we are at war with the Kingdom of Poromiel, attacked by Griffin riders. We will learn more about that later, don't worry. Just get the idea that people are serious. Just at the doorstep of her mom's office, she hears her renowned famous sister Mira talking about of how poor chances of survival Violet has if she continues with the plan of going to the Riders Quadrant, as her mother is forcing her to do. "You are sending her to die," she says. "She doesn't stand a chance." Anyway, Violet enters the office, and she has spent most of her life training to join the Scribe Quadrant, same as her belated dad, and it's not very well prepared for the physical demands of the riders. Lilith Sorengel, though, the general, blames Violet's dad for sheltering it, and it seems that she has a certain physical frailty which comes from an illness when she was a babe that almost has it killed, and she is now described as being too short, too frail, and has pale skin, pale eyes, and pale hair. Lilith demands Violet to join the riders, same as all her family has done, same as her sister Mira, and same as her older brother Brennan, who died with her dragon while trying to appease a rebellion. Settling the conversation, Lilith calms down Argyle, saying that she will put Violet on the parapet herself. Will she not do that of her own will. The parapet, it's this first trial to enter the Rider's Quadrant, and although Mira insists that Violet will die, Lilith counteracts, saying, Mira, Violet deals with more pain before lunch than you in an entire week. If any of my children is capable of surviving the Rider's Quadrant, that it's her. Mark these words, because these are the best thing that she will tell Argyll in the whole book. Later, in what appears to be a family tradition, Mira helps Violet reorganize her pack and gives her protective clothing to help her survive the trial, including a vest that it's made with dragon scales. Violet is of course like, how am I able to have dragon scales in a vest? Like, scales are huge, dragons are massive. And that's the moment where Mira answers her with a smile on her face. I know a rider that can make things very big, small, and smaller things much, much bigger. Mira removes them several books from Violet's bag, including a book of folklore from their father, a book that describes dark magic wielders called the venim, evil people who corrupt magic. Mira also shares with her that other cadets will try to kill Violet just because she is the daughter of Lilith, and tells her to find Dane Aetos, an old friend who is a second year at the academy. Dane? Her heart rate jumps. It's been a year and I've missed his soft brown eyes and the way he laughs, she says. We cross through the gates, leaving the fortress behind, and Violet survives the quadrant entrance and the chaos that people is creating. Each of Navarre's 6 provinces has sent their candidates for the military service. Some volunteer and some other force. The majority of the crowd moves to the infantry quadrant. Some of them go to the healers quadrant. The minority goes to a scribe, and then suddenly she just sees how people are getting into the Rider's Quadrant, a fortified tower where riders need to climb. Because high above them, crossing the river, there's the Rider's Citadel, protected by the parapet, a stone bridge that it's all about to separate riders from dead cadets real soon. Mira continues to share a little bit of knowledge and just trying to let her know that she don't need to seek friendships, just alliances. And she is now in the line and she sees 2 people there. The first one is a girl called Rhiannon. She is described as having brown hair and equally beautiful dark brown skin. And also there's a muscular blonde man called Dylan that is holding a crying girl. Our girl notices that he is a separatist child identified by a dragon given tattoo. So all of this means that back then in the rebellion that killed Brennan, people tried to rebel, they were busted and they were killed. The children of these rebels are now conscripted to the riders and they are marked as well so that everyone can know who is who. This leads Mira to warn Violet about Xaden Ryerson, the son of the great betrayer, the one who led this rebellion years ago. To atone for the actions of his father, Xaden has sworn an oath to the Empire and is now an overachiever 3rd-year rider. Violet joins these 2 cadets, Rhiannon and Dylan, and as they climb the tower, they discover that they all have very different motivations. Rhiannon wants to bone a dragon, meanwhile Dylan just wants to marry. Violet realizes that Rhiannon is wearing the same kind of new boots that she was wearing before Mira changed her completely. And so she is such a good spirit and she decides to switch one boot to ensure Rhiannon's safety. A very honorable but questionable decision. The parapet claims roughly 50% of the rider candidates every year. 3 riders then wait at the entrance, and when one of them turns in her direction, Vi's heart simply stops. Described as tall with black hair and dark brows, warm tawny skin, and with muscles that make her swallow, and eyes with gold fleck onyx, Xaden is the most exquisite man Argyll has ever seen. Her first thoughts are flaming hot, scorching hot, gets you into trouble, and you like it level hot. However, soon after he discovers that she is the daughter of the general, and things change very quickly and they make contact. "You mother captured my father and oversaw his execution," he says. And she is like, your father killed my older brother, so seems like we're even. Of course, things start a little bit heated between the two. But Xaden seems a very detail-oriented and quick man because he quickly grasped that she has traded boots. And he is like, you're friends with that girl? And she's like, no, why? I just met her. And he's like, interesting. So this points us to think that more things will happen between the two, although it seems that they have a very good reason for being enemies. The tension between the two, though, it's broken when Dylan, who was already on the parapet, screams, falling from the rain-soaked parapet to his death. Violet starts to cross the parapet with a firm thought of not die. As she takes the first steps, she hears how a candidate behind her called Jack Barlowe starts to mock her. She starts to work, trying to remain calm. To do so, she recites historical facts of the land that will help us understand the political and social context of this land. The continent is the home of 2 kingdoms, and we've been at war for 400 years. Navarre is the largest. We have 6 unique provinces. Tarandor is at the border of the Poromial kingdom. She looks back and sees what Jack is doing as she watches him throw another candidate from the top of the parapet before turning his attention to her. She tries to run but slips near falling. She recovers, but Jack mocks her. You are next, Soaring Gale. And she's like, okay, if I fall because of my mistake, then fine, but I'm not about to get killed because of an asshole. And as he approaches, he just wants to keep moving, and she jumps to her safety till the end of the parapet. But he has just gotten so close that they are touching. She is right at the top. She has crossed it, and she takes a dagger and gets it close to a very intimate part of Jack. She pulls that dagger, holding Jack off long enough to remind him of the rules. He cannot kill her intentionally in the presence of higher rank cadets. And now that they have crossed, well, she has, the parapet, they are being observed. The older cadets agree, telling Jack that he will be executed if he hurts Violet. He vows revenge. You're dead, Soaring Gale. Violet moves forward, feeling sick about Jack's behavior, but soon she goes to find Rhiannon. Both are celebrating that they made it, and Rhiannon is like, I would have died at least 3 times if not for you, bud. Let's be forever friend. And we have here for the first time Dane. He is not very happy to see her though, and his first words are like, what the hell are you doing here? Which, get used to this, because he is going to be using these kind of phrases over and over and over. It just makes me crazy. He then realizes that she is sick with pain and shock, and orders Rhiannon to just go and inscribe them both to their squad. And he is like, no one can see you. She's like, but why cannot anyone see me? Because I'm puking after surviving the parapet in almost a murder attempt? That is kind of like a reasonable response, right? And he's like, no, that's exactly why no one can see you. So hopefully you can already start to grasp how things are going to be unfolding here at this school. Things are bad. He then takes Violet to his room to rub her knee, which has become slightly dislocated due to weakness in her joints. This is basically the sickness that she had when she was a girl, and basically this has rendered her a little bit more fragile than the rest. You're supposed to be in the scribe quadrant. What the hell has happened with you? But he also plays it a little bit cool and shows her a little bit of his powers, because as a dragon rider, you can have a signet, which is your power that you have after you bond with a dragon, but you can also have a tiny little bit of magic, which includes kind of like telekinesis. They start to flirt a little bit, and he is like, okay, as much as I hate that you're here, it's more than nice that you are. You look different though. You've seen me in all different types of clothes, and you're telling me that leather is the thing that does it for you, Dane? Which he responds, glad to see that your ear pod hasn't dulled your tongue. And then she says, oh, I can do quite a few things with my tongue. You'd be impressed. So that's the level of flirting that we are going to be seeing here. He then tries to plot a way for her to escape the rider's quadrant, insulting her in the process by referencing at her health and how she is not going to be able, and that he feels bad because he's not going to be able to protect her. Afterwards, Violet joins Rhiannon and catches sight of Xaden again. She wonders what his signet is. Signet powers range from healing to elemental control and reflect the rider's innermost personality and ambitions. Commander Punchak addresses the cadets and outlines that there are many threats that face them, starting by sharing that 67 people died at the parapet and only a quarter are going to be alive by the end of the 3 years. There are 4 wings, each one composed of 3 sections: claw, flame, and tail sections. All 3 squads, and there are 3 squads per section. While the squads are predominantly composed of first-year cadets, there are also second and third-year riders. Dane's squad is ordered to switch to 4th wing as per Xaden demands. She fears the worst as she can now be killed very easily by Xaden. He then begins a motivation speech that is interrupted by the arrival of 8 massive dragons, an event that absolutely scares several cadets and then flee in fear. Not good idea, because they are incinerated by the dragons for their cowardice, closing the pep talk as saying to the dragons, you're just the prey, so do your best to remain alive.
Xaden for coach, no doubt, any day.
The next states the cadets listened to a scribe read the names of the dead. This ritual is part of every morning's roll call. After 24 hours and 1 night in the first floor barrack, our girl is starting to realize that this quadrant is a mix of we might die tomorrow and brutal efficiency. Private rooms are only available to those of them that survive the Threshing, the day when they can fight for a chance to bond and meet the dragons. She is listening to Dane direct orders when she sees a scribe moving towards the quadrant, and she's like, okay, that was my dream, but she's trying to forget that. Then she learns that her plan is pretty intense. Train to handle the gauntlet, a terrifying particle obstacle they will need to master so that they can be presented to dragons. 2 days after that, the Threshing will happen. Suddenly, Violet hears Dane bird calling her to a private place so that they can talk. He uses that time to ask about the knee and see if she is okay and if she has eaten something, which is very like a brother vibes. He also then tries to convince Vi to cut her hair so that she remains safe. Violet's like, no, my hair, it's the only thing that I really love about me, so this is staying. And then she questions him about the transfer of his squad. He admits that Xaden advocated for him to change personally because he wants to kill Violet. And he empathizes that Xaden, it's bad deal because of his dragon Sigale. It's also very vicious. Violet asks Dane what is his special signet, his power, and learns that he can see a person's most recent memories, but he has to put the hands on the person. He also imparts some core learnings, saying that this place can wrap almost everything about a person. It cuts away the bullshit and it just reveals who you are at your core. And mark these words because she will say them again at some point later on. Time passes a little bit and all cadets attend to Battle Brief, a place where the cadets are trained in politics and war, knowing everything that is happening in the war. There, Violet recognizes that one of the scribe's professor with whom she was originally supposed to train is the one that is sharing what is happening. That is called Professor Markham. It is the duty of the scribes then not only to study and master the past, but to relay and record the present. These instructors describe a griffin attack from the Paromial Kingdom that occurred the night before. Dragons use magic channeled through the riders to protect the Kingdom of Navarre through some words, but it seems that these words failed yesterday and that 37 civilians were killed. And the professor is kind of asking these cadets to ask questions so that their political mind can be, strengthened. And so different people start to ask different questions, and Bai makes Rhiannon ask a question for herself because she's trying to just lay low, just to not do anything so that hopefully they don't realize that she is the daughter of Lilith. And she is though busted very soon, and she nonetheless determines that the dragons knew that the walls were breaking before the attack. Second and third year cadets then take over, and Xaden asks if the attackers were looking for something specific, but no one can determine what. And as the brief concludes, one of the professors implied that most third years are starting to be called to active duty. So it's not just a game. They get out of class and into sparring lessons, determined to see the strength and agility of each cadet. Increasingly anxious, Violet watches and worries about her training and her fragility. She makes a deal with Rhiannon, promising to help her with history if she helps her training. She then sees how Jack is called to the mat and breaks the neck of a guy who was fighting. And he is like, "You're next, Sorringale," which it's not very promising. Violet is settled with a separatist kid called Imogen. It seems that she hates terribly Violet. They start to fight non-stop, and even she tries to kill her. She is not killed because of the dragon vest. We then see Dane carrying Violet to the healer quadrants, where Violet recognizes that most of the healers from her many previous visits are still there. She calls out Dane for losing it after Imogen because he was like, "No, you killed her! You are trying to kill her! You need to do something!" And she is like, "You need to chill. I am trying to keep it a low key." Then we learn that there is another power that can truly heal, but that is a signet, and that it's called the mending, and that was Violet's brother Power. This mending supposes that they can turn something to the previous state. She resolves that she is going to remain here and that she will use the mending, but just this one time. By the time that she makes it back to the barracks, she finds Rhiannon waiting for her. She assures Violet that she will help her to learn combat before the formal matches begin in 2 weeks, because this will happen, they will fight. As Violet gets into bed, she finds a note from a notebook and then a book. This book belonged to Brennan. There are a lot of different tips. One of them is that it seems that these fights that will happen in 2 weeks are not random, but that the professors know who are they going to be matching ahead of time. A slow smile spreads across her face because she knows now how to survive. A few days later, we follow Violet at night, stumbling in the waist-high grass which grows alongside the river beneath the citadel. Challenges start next week, and she intends to pick berries so that she can dry them and make poison. She is almost down the tree when she spots movement beneath her and pauses. She spots Imogen, the girl that she was fighting, and Xaden walking beneath her, but she cannot hear them over the roar of the river. More riders arrive, and all of whom have black cloaks, and it seems that they have the rebellion tattoos. It is illegal for more than 3 cadets to gather, and she worries that they might be planning something. So it takes her 2 more branches to go to hear them. Xaden talks to the younger cadets about survival. The gathered riders, Garrick and Bodhi, Xaden's cousin, try to share a little bit of tips, and they are like, keep what you know, but recite wherever they tell you. And one of them is then asking, but what are we gonna do with Violet Sorringale? And when are we going to kill her? And Xaden is like, I'm going to be the one to handle her, don't worry. But Garrick counters that it's not very different for what they suffered. Like, if they punish the kid for the sins of the parent, then isn't that the same that what they did to their parents and then to them? She waits for them to leave and climbs down when a shadow emerges behind her, and she finds that Xaden has her. Scream and you die, he says. How did you know? She says. You could smell my perfume? Isn't that what the heroines say in the books? So this is kind of like the type of relationships that they have. He is like, I command shadows, but sure, it was your perfume. Being a shadow wielder allows him to hide and disorient others. We know that she is in big trouble because now she has witnessed a terrible secret from Xaden, one that can kill him. However, he is not 100% serious with this, mocking her with the weakness, but also being impressed about how good she throws daggers, and he kind of like recommends, good, like you're good. Do that to Jack, show him what you have. But are you gonna keep my secret? And she is like, yes, I will. And he's like, if you do that, I will owe you a favor. And that's how things land between them. Not bad. A little bit of time passes and the challenges are already starting, and we find Violet walking with Dane do her breakfast duty. Dane is all, it is worth getting up in order to be with you. It's the only moment in which I can be with you, not really being, you know, your squad leader. And he again worries about Violet's physical ability to handle the sparring challenges scheduled for that afternoon. And she is like, I can handle myself and I can do whatever I can. Either from Jack, you don't need to worry about him, or the threshing, I will do whatever I want. Dane suggests that she appoints Jack, and she blinks, thinking how different the advice from Dane to the one from Xaden is, like avoid versus fight them. And she then resolves to do whatever she wants, and she sprinkles a little bit of poison into Oren's food, his challenger that afternoon. Later, cadets receive a lesson about dragons by Professor Kerry, who warns them about the upcoming Threshing, which is the moment in which the dragons will pick riders with which to bond. When the professor shares that there's 100 dragons prepared to bond, they realize that there's less dragons than people, and so like fierce competition again. And someone asks about a dark dragon that seems to be available. Professor then says that this black dragon, it's actually not available, and that the only other black dragon was the one of Colonel Milgram, who grants this colonel the amazing gift of knowing what's going to be the outcome of a war before that happens. Cadets keep asking about the black dragon, and then Professor shares that this dragon hasn't agreed to bond since his previous and only rider was killed during the uprising. The afternoon comes, and at the sparring room, our girl is so nervous that she pukes. She is watching Reunification beat the hell out of her opponent, and she also sees that Jack is intending to kill his challenger, but she continues to recite her mantra, I'm going to be fine, which I found really cathartic. She is called down to the mat where her opponent, Oren, looks ill, and when things start to get a little bit heated, we see how Oren vomits, and as a result, Violet wins this challenge. Hooray! Like, she is smart. Over the next few weeks, Violet continues to poison her challengers in various ways to keep the upper hand against them, gaining a dagger after each time. By September, she feels, well, yeah, established. However, when one of her sparring partners goes to the healers ahead of time, Xaden appears and he's like, I'm going to volunteer. You're going to be fighting me here and now. And she's like, whoops. She realizes that she is completely screwed as Xaden steps forward. Professor encourages everyone to come and have a look because Xaden, it's the best warrior and they should watch and learn, which is not promising for our girl. Dane then comes to the help, a little bit out of your league, right, Xaden? And he's like, relax, Aetos, which is the surname of Dane. I'm just going to be here teaching her. Violet and Xaden start to spar, throwing daggers at his described as ridiculously well sculpted chest, as to what Xaden responds, going for blood today? Are we Violence? This is the first time that he's going to be calling her Violence, but it's going to be kind of like her nickname. He gradually disarms her and shows her different tips on how to win based on her stature. And he's all like, I know what you're doing, but you're not getting better because you're actually avoiding the different fights. So you need to prepare. And she is like, but why? Do you want me killed? And he's like, and be denied of your company? They keep fighting until he lands on top of her. She can make out every speck of gold in his onyx eyes, and she thinks, beautiful. Friggin' asshole. And well, she tries to convince herself that she is not attracted to toxic men, but the fight ends. She has learned, she has gained some daggers, and all is good. That night, Dane comes again to her room. Vi starts to ask about Xaden and just want to know if they can be actually bad thing, like can be plotting. Dane confesses no. After bonding with the dragon, the only thing that you can do is keep Navarre safe. Dane then confesses to Violet that he has reported Xaden and Jack to a professor and that he is now open to take her to the scribes. And she snaps, "You went behind my back because you thought that I'm not cutting it? Like, you said it every day, but I want every challenge and I'm not a liability." And he's like, "But you don't understand. I have to watch and I cannot help you." And Vi at the end is like, "Okay, I'll think about it if I need to go to the scribes." Some days pass and Violet is looking up and up, staring at the obstacle course, the death trap that the gauntlet is. Some cadets are thrilled of being here, like they've been waiting for this moment years. There's one cadet in the class called Arlie that is actually very enthusiastic about that. She cannot wait to bond a dragon, and they know that this gauntlet is designed to basically kill all of those cadets that are not ready. They are allowed to see the course before they start practicing because they will only have 9 tries before just going for the big official day. She starts to train these obstacles and she is followed by this cadet that was really excited called Aurelie. At this point they have all the help so they can, really explore this land, and she makes her. Vi actually makes it, but she realizes that she is very, very, very small. Aurelie, though, it's very excited. But then a roar sounds from overhead. She jerks her gaze just in time to see the underbelly of a massive green dragon flying right above them. Aurelie cries out and Violet's head snaps toward her just in time to see her slipping from the post, falling down the cliff. The next day, Violet volunteers to ceremonially burn her deceased squad-mate belongings and keeping the school tradition, as she is the last person that Aurelie, this girl, saw before dying. She starts to truly think that she maybe should go to the scribes, but she keeps thinking that it's been 2 months now and that she's still here. A little bit later, she finds Xaden, Garrick, and Bodhi, and Xaden stops mid-step and is like, "What are you doing here after curfew? How have you spotted us again?" And she's like, "Look, are you going to kill me or not? Because I need to know what my chances are. I was hopeful and I'm hating that hope. It's making me think that I'm going to survive because I know that the gauntlet, it's impossible for me, for my stature." And then Xaden is like, "Think outside the box, little Violet, because you have everything that you need." The next practice session of the gauntlet are no more successful. Presentation is tomorrow, so Violet is going to run to the scribes, right? Like tonight, it's the moment. But even though she's still not thinking it through, it's not sitting well with her, because if she hides, then she'll never know if she was good enough to make it. Then next day arrives and presentation is here. According to Brennan and statistics, today will be one of the deadliest for first years. Dane escorts his squad to the course as Violet and Brennan try to joke and keep their spirits high. When they enter the tunnel, Dane tries one more time to get Violet to the scribes. "Change your mind now," he says, but she rejects him, claiming that now she has changed. She has made the decision to be a rider. A little bit later, she is halfway through the gauntlet and she's taking an alternative route. She keeps thinking about Xaden's advice and how she can make it if just she makes things a little bit different. So she takes the daggers and little by little she makes it. However, upon arriving that, one of the wing leaders, Amber Mavis, little Dane's friend, accuses Violet of cheating and argues that what she's doing was not legal. But Violet definitely knows the rules and she basically just just mated without any consequence. Up till this point, there has been 169 taken cadets by the time the morning is done, and her squad has been placed 11th position, so they're not bad. But the fastest in the gauntlet has been Liam Miari. The squad learns that one additional dragon has joined the presentation, and it's an extremely rare feather tail, which is the color of gold. In a single file, all of our cadets start walking. It seems that you cannot really get super close, because if a dragon decides that you're not worthy, the dragon will just incinerate you. So, you know, a little bit space, better. Violet is trying to get everyone comfortable, but there, at the end of the line, they see the small golden dragon, and Vi jaw drops. But the response of the other cadets isn't as good. Some say it's a mistake, that it's too yellow, and that it's too small. Violet is like, it looks powerful enough for me to burn you to death, so better shush it. They start to make their way back to school, but one of the squad mates, one that was actually bullying this dragon, gets incinerated. They are all concerned now, and they are trying to get back as soon as they can, when suddenly a pair of two massive green dragons approach and starts to investigate Violet. It seems that they are smelling the scales that Violet has in her vest, and she realizes that the dragons can understand what is happening. So she explains that it is because Mira placed the vest on her and just basically allows her to move forward. The other cadets are like, oh, I thought you were going to be incinerated. And she's like, well, no. And one that was mean to her, then ashes. A little bit of time passes there of this, and they know that October is here and the threshing is happening. This is the moment in which the dragons and the cadets finally bond. After several hours of hiking, Violet comes across several dragons, but does not feel emotionally connected to any of them. She climbs a tree and spots where the dragons are and where the cadets are, and you know, at that point, she overhears Jack talking with two of his friends about the small dragon. They are like, it is very small, let's kill it. And Argyle, it's like, no, I cannot allow that to happen. So she decides to reach to this golden dragon before they do, so that she can at least warn the dragon to go away, and you know, whatever happens. She gets to the meadow, but then also Jack also arrived, and she's like, no, you cannot do this, you cannot kill a dragon. They approach with weapons drawn, and suddenly Xaden is also there. I would strongly recommend you rethink your actions, he says, with Segale at his back. For the first time, Xaden's side fills Violet with hope. She hopes he won't allow Jack to kill the dragon, but Jack is kind of like a smartass as well, and he's like, you cannot say anything while at threshing. You need to, you know, leave the cadets do whatever they do. And then Jack roars a battle cry and sprints towards Violet, trying to kill her. She starts throwing different daggers, and one hits him in the shoulder. And Jack, you know, at its core, it's a coward. So he starts to say like, oh no, I cannot move.
Kill her!
Says to his friends, and then he flees. Violet keeps fighting, and at that point, Xaden, it's kind of like, to your left, to your right, be careful. And these minions are like, you can't interfere. Xaden's like, but I can narrate. So Violet knocks out Oren, but the other is about to kill her when they both stop. Her heart lurches into her throat, and she then sees the unbonded black dragon. Step aside, Silver One, it says, and then proceeds to incinerate one of these minions. The dragon instructs Violet to kill the other, Oren, but she refuses it because it's kind of like the wrong thing to do. She believes that she cannot kill an unconscious man. He then instructs Violet to get on her back, and she realizes that she it's been picked, that she has chosen her to bond. And she tries to climb him because he's massive, the biggest dragon yet you've ever seen. He is like all moody, which is the best thing in this book. He then performs a series of, acrobatics to impress the other dragons. And the only way to keep Violet there is because he has magic that allows her to get attached. And she sees that the small little dragon is following. As they land into the valley, a roar of dragons emerge. All of that in deference to this black dragon. And everyone is like,
"Oh, you made it!"
She then approaches the high-ranking officials to report the wand. And in order to do that, what she needs to say is the full name of the dragon, which suppose you only have because the dragon has mentally shared it with you. And there she finds good old mom with the Colonel Milgram. And the mom is like, "Don't say the name, she needs to prove it." And she is like, "His name is Ternerach. For us, it's going to be Tern." And Tern is like, "Okay, your pronunciation could be better, but hey, at least you remembered." And she feels so much pride. And then she also hears
Andarnaurana,
which is her name, Andarna for short. They are like, "Yeah, tell them. You are about to bond too." And then chaos erupts. Every general starts to shout, "No, this is impossible." And to be fair, to be honest, this is the first time that this has happened. She there sees that Jack has unfortunately survived and also bonded a dragon, but he is injured, and she now has Tern and also Andarna, so it's kind of like she feels all right. When alone, Violet asks one of these professors if two dragons have picked one rider and what has happened, and then he is like, "No, it has never happened, but it's not up to us to decide. We only maintain the illusion that we are in control. It's up to the Empirean to decide." And the Empirean, they are kind of like the generals of the dragons, the society of the dragons. Is then the moment in which Violet gets to see everyone, and Dane arrives, and he is like, "Damn it, Violet, just damn." But then, "Oh, you're hurt. What just happened there? They are going to make you choose a dragon, and if that happens, you need to choose Andarna, because she is the safest. And if you take turn, Xaden will get you killed." She's like, "Why Xaden now?" And he's like, "Well, because Tern, it's mated to Segale, so if they're mated, you now need to be forever together." She's like, "Okay, well, I did not know that," but she starts to narrate what has happened, and then at some point, Xaden emerges from the shadows, almost as if cold, and Dane is like, "But wait a moment, Xaden was there? Did you actually, modified or tried to do something with the threshing, because that is illegal?" And he is like, "No, Segale called for Tern, but Tern bonded Violet because of his own volition." And he's like, look, Sorengale is the last person in the continent I ever warned to be chained." But then he asked today, "But what would have you done? Would you not have helped or narrated? And even more, are you going to report me knowing that I helped your friend to remain alive?" And Dane is like, "Well, rules are rules, so I would not have helped." The dragons return, and it's in here when we get a little bit more of the backstory of Tern, because Xaden warns Violet that because Tern is so powerful, the bond that he has with the rider is also very powerful, and when his previous rider died, he also died as well. As a result of that, Segale also died, and as a result of that, then also almost Xaden died. So they're all kind of connected. Then General Milgram comes and announces that Violet can keep both the dragons, and Tern is like, "As it was bound to happen." And it's in that moment when the different dragons start to create these tattoos, these different relics in the riders. In this case, they mark Violet with a beautiful tattoo going from shoulder to shoulder with a massive black dragon and a small golden one in the middle. And Dane comes, he's very happy, and he then kisses Violet. But she is surprised because she does not feel any passion now. Things go better from here onwards in a way, because after sleeping in a crowded barracks, getting her own room is a nice plus. The next morning, she and Rhiannon walk together, and after some teasing, Violet admits that the kiss was very mad, that she felt no spark when Dane kissed her. And they go to have breakfast, and then they realize that there's been a massive power shift, that now people are starting to get very close to Violet. They're starting to treat bad Jack, and one of these people that are now talking to them, it's Imogen. Imogen will instruct Violet to meet her for strength training, and then Violet realizes that her new connection with Xaden is what it's making Imogen and a lot of different people also treat her a little bit different. Her gaze snaps to Xaden and her chest tightens and she thinks, so freaking beautiful. A few hours later, they are waiting in front of the dragons on the flight field. Tern arrives, but Adarna stays away, and as her small frame prevents her from really carrying Violet. While Violet and Tern fly, they kind of like bond telepathically, and it's amazing. It's honestly one of the best things of this story so far, but Violet is trying to get Tern to remove that magic so that she can learn and so that he can have all of his magic, and she keeps falling and falling and falling. A day later, Violet and Dane meet again and they are like, well, talking about that case, and he's like, right, we cannot do that because the rules and because I'm like in another level, and she's like, yeah, because of the rules, yeah, and she's like, no, 100% not because of the rules. So some days pass and we see Violet assigned to archive duty, where she returns books from the commanding officers and collects new requests. There she finds her scribe friend Jasenia, and that makes her really happy, but also feel that she is not a scribe anymore. Like, she does not feel that that is her path, which is very refreshing because she's kind of like becoming this writer. She takes advantage of this moment and she asks her friend for the book of tales that her father gave her and that Mina took away in the first chapter, if you remember. And it is weird because she cannot find it in any place, and that's not supposed to happen. Anyway, she let it slip, and at breakfast, Violet learns that one of these cadets, it's already displaying the signet, the power, and it seems that once that they start channeling with their dragons, they have around 6 months to manifest the signet. Otherwise, they can be killed by the magic. So there's always something in here in this world. A little bit later, she gets thrown away into training, which is going to be the main thing that she will do all of this time, and she will keep strengthening those bonds with Tern and Adarna. It comes a moment in which Dane arrives, and you can see that Tern does not like at all Dane. He's like, if he harms you, I'll scorch the ground where he stands. In private now, Dane takes the opportunity to ask why didn't she tell him that she's continuously falling from Tern? And she's like, I'm sorry? Why? I've got this. And he goes on and on about how she is not really making it. It comes to a point in which she snaps and she is like, I'm sorry, the reason we'll never be anything more than friends isn't because of your rules, but because you don't have faith in me. You've been telling me from the first time, so forgive me, but you're about to be some of that bullshit that this place cuts away from me. If you remember, this is what Dane told her at the beginning. So she moves away from the situation and she goes with the other cadets, where she sees that one of these cadets have displayed a signet that allows him to see and to hear what everyone is thinking. And then Professor Carr, one of these specialists in powers, comes and just snaps his neck and kills him. That night, Violet dreams about her father before Tern wakes her telepathically. It seems that Oren and all the cadets broke into her room to murder her. Tern tries to coach her as 6 of them attack her from different places and one of them flees. They overpower her and Oren prepares to kill her. She's like, I should have killed you during threshing. He is strangling her while Tern is screaming that help is almost there, but she knows she is about to die. The bedroom door flies open, wood splinter, but she cannot see who is there as Adarna screams in her mind, mine, and freezes time. Quick, I can hold it, Adarna says, and Violet frees herself from Oren's hold and makes her way to the door where Xaden is frozen but clearly enraged. Adarna then resumes time. Xaden fills the doorway like a dark avenging angel and just kills everyone. All the high-ranking cadets then enter the room and survey the damage, and they're like, what the hell has happened here? How they were able to get in here, because you have logs, and how these cadets were able to pass those logs. That needs a high-rank cadet in order to do so. And she's like, well, I might know someone that just came and then flee. They exit into the training field and wait for Tern, Segale, and Adarna to come. Xaden then confronts Tern, demanding to know what has happened in Violet's room, like what power course, it's Tyrion channeling to Violet. And Tyrion is like, I'm gonna kill you, little human. And then Violet is like, don't kill him, like he kind of saved me. Moment in which Segale, for the first time, mentally talks with Violet and it's like, okay, I admire you. Adana then explains to Violet that feather-tailed dragons can give their powers to humans, which is why adult dragons are the only ones who bond. Violet then realizes that Adarna is a juvenile dragon, not a special breed of dragon, it's a baby. And because the young dragons are untrained, humans can abuse and steal the power, killing the dragons in the process. Once Tyrion and Adarna revealed this information to Violet and Xaden, they swear their riders to secrecy. The next day comes and we start with Professor saying the name of the cadets killed yesterday in the murder attempt. While everyone is still in formation, Xaden pulls Liam, which is one of these rebel kids, and he basically places him as her bodyguard from now onwards. We will learn about this later, but Liam and Xaden kind of like live together almost as brothers. During the morning announcement though, the commander also claims that a violation of the rider code occurred. Dane approaches to Violet and like, oh, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me that you were almost murdered yesterday? And she was like, because I'm not sure if you would have believed me, and also this just happens. Meanwhile, Xaden just steps forward and relays the events of the night before and then accuses a fellow wing leader, Amber Maybes, the one that says in the gauntlet that of opening the door of Violet's room. Dane is like, what the hell? Amber would have never done that. Violet, get up there and tell everyone he is lying. And she is like, but he's not. I was there. He is all enraged, saying, that's impossible. Let me see, and tries to take that memory from her. Give me the memory, he screams. And she is like, touch me without my permission and you'll spend the rest of your life regretting it. Which is like, yes, yes, yes. Amber makes inappropriate accusations towards Xaden, and at some point Violet is like, okay Tyrion, share what we saw to everyone. And in that moment Tyrion shares the memory to all different dragons, and because of the bond all of the riders can now see it. Then Dane pales and then Tyrion incinerate Amber Maybes. The next day, Violet is not really happy that Liam is still shadowing her, but she likes him well enough. Liam shares some of the horror he survived as a child of a rebel, and Violet learns that all of the children like him are forced to join the Rider Quadrant when they are conscripted. They are back at the Archives duty, and Jasenia gives them some books. They are kind of like we're doing back and forth, and one of those books hold the daily battle brief that falls from what they are holding, and what they see it's that an attack has happened, something terrible with lots of killings and griffins, and they are very scared and they are like, okay, let's not see any more of these. We are going to be told now at battle brief. The weird thing is that once that they get into battle brief, nothing is shared, nothing relevant happened. And they are like, okay, they're not telling us because it has to be marked as not for our eyes, right? It can only be that. The rest of November passes without mention to the events Violet and Liam read in the brief, and as Violet continues to train, it is starting to become stronger thanks to Imogen, and she admits to herself that her physical attraction to Xaden might be growing. Dane has ignored violence since Amber's death, yet seems angry when he catches Violet watching Xaden train. So it's like not healthy at all. Later that evening, Violet is overcome both by pain and power as she is finally starting to channel Tyrion's magic, so the time is ticking for her to show her signet, and she is starting to feel a little bit of lust. A lot of lust, and she goes out of her room. She sees Liam, and Liam is like, why are you looking at me like that? And she's like, no, nothing. And she goes outside. And there she finds Xaden. She realizes that Xaden is smoking because he needs to block these emotions from Tern and Segale. And he's like, why the hell are you not shielding? And she's like, because I don't know how to. He's like, okay, crash course, I'm going to show you. And she's like, are you going to show me? Why? And you've never helped me. And he's like, what? I've been helping you for a month. Ask me nicely, violence, or I'm gone. And she's like, would you pretty please help me how to shield before I accidentally climb you like a tree? And we both wake up with regrets. Then Xaden teaches her to shield herself from Tern, and it's actually very interesting because you need to imagine a place, you need to imagine that you're anchored, and then you start to see the different, power sources. So she learns how to do that, and she starts to block Tern. Xaden is amazed. I couldn't do that for weeks, he said. And she's like, well, I did have the superior teacher. And she's like, okay, this is intense. They are intense. And he's like, kissing you would be a cataclysmic mistake because there's the tension. And she's like,
calamitous. But then
naturally kiss. Xaden though breaks the kiss, insisting that the desire they feel, it's not theirs. And it's like, no, you have to go. This is what you are feeling because of Tern and Segale doing funny dragon stuff, not because you really want me. Next day, we follow her as she is telling Rhiannon how amazing that kiss was, and they also discuss what will happen once that Xaden graduates, which is at the end of this course, because mated dragons cannot be remained apart for a lot of time, and that might bring Violet to wherever Xaden is, as he is now the most powerful rider. And Rhiannon is like, for now, my friend, my lady, because you have 2 dragons. She then shows Violet her signet, her power, and she has the ability to summon objects to herself, which is pretty cool. The cadets, all of them, they go to class, and Dane intercepts Violet, and it's like, bye. Can we talk? And he is like, I don't understand why you allowed Tern to share the memory with everyone, but you did not allow me to take it. And she was like, I understand that, but you were going to take it away from me, and also you did not trust me. But in a way, they kind of make peace. Time passes, and now that Violet has access to Tern's power, she's starting to train with Professor Carr, the one that kind of snapped the neck of this one that was able to read minds. So, things are intense. By January, she still hasn't manifested her signet, and she realizes that Jack has been finally assigned to Violet doing one of these sparring challenges. She knows that Jack is going to go for the kill, and she asks Liam to pretty please don't tell Xaden that Jack has been assigned to her, because what can he do? And Liam is like,
but I want to know, I don't know, yeah.
So basically, she gets him to not tell anything, but once that they get there, Liam's like, okay, no, I will tell Xaden, and she goes and runs off, and, Xaden will come. Violet and Jack then fights incredibly hard, and smart little Violet learned in one of these moments that Jack is allergic to oranges, and so as she knew that they were going to be sparring together, she got this little potion, and in one moment she just throws the vial into his mouth, forcing the 2 of them apart. And that's the moment in which Jack's eyes fly impossibly wide and he starts to turn purple. She wins, of course, the contest, but shares with everyone that he is allergic to oranges so that he does not die in the process. So good for you, but She then faints and wakes up in the infirmary with Xaden by her side. He's like, you turned oranges into a weapon, Violence? And he then starts talking about how big of a mistake the kiss was, and that he does not want to talk about it anymore. And one of the things that I like the most about this book is how she overall managed this whole situation. And she's like, but what if I want to talk about that? And he's like, well, you're free to do that, but I don't necessarily need to be in a conversation, which is an interesting move. He then decides that he will take over her training though. He will be the one, not Imogen, not Liam, he. They start sparring together the next day, and you know, the tension keeps building, and every time that she gets to him, she gets different daggers. We move forward and it's now already March, and Violet is still no signet. 3 months have passed and she is, you know, a little bit nervous. We move forward and we see how the last challenge of the squad battle is happening. The commander announces that instead of telling them the final unknown task tomorrow, they will begin this final task now. Remember, in here, everyone all the time fighting, and he commands the squads to find and acquire the one thing that will be the most advantage to their enemies regarding a war effort. So they're always trying to make the cadets think strategically, and they have 3 hours to present whatever item they are able to grasp. The squad tries to think what they're gonna do, and you know, one thing leads to another, and Violet, it's like, I know what are we gonna do. We are going to break into my mother's office and we're gonna take something from them. 2 hours later, the squad creeps out the staircase to General Sorengale's office. One cadet astral projects in a very cool fashion to distract the wards as another opens the locks and they are able to enter in the office. There, they resolve that the thing that they're going to steal, it's a map that is hanging on the wall, which shows detailed information about the outpost and supply routes. So, blah, 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 they take it on time and they, you know, just present that. Chaos erupts and she sees Xaden tipping an imaginary hat to her, bowing his head, and she's like,
It doesn't matter how the boats come down. I've already won.
Time passes again and it's already April, and we change scenery as they are flying for 6 hours straight for the prize that they won previously. A week-long tour of a forward outpost. Yay! The prize that you all wanted. A little bit after arriving there, she hears a familiar voice and she realizes that Mira, her sister, is there. They embrace and they're like, oh, you were right, I love you, all that. 2 days later, Rhiannon and Violet resolve to go to Rhiannon's family's house, which is just 1 hour flight away, but Mira finds them. And, you know, Violet is able to convince Mira to go with them because how else? They're going to be really safe with them. And meanwhile, Rhiannon is with her family. Violet is trying to share everything that is happening with Dane and also with Xaden. But in that precise moment, Xaden steps out of the shadow and it's like 3 days is the maximum time that Tern and Segale can be separated. The next day, Mira runs riders through different hypothetical battle situations, challenging them to strategically use dragons and rider signets. And it comes to a moment in which Violet just shares with Xaden, don't be an ass. And he telepathically answers Violet, like, you don't know what I can do. And she freaks out, like, how can it be that they can communicate with their mind? And it seems it is because of the bond between the dragons. Then Xaden flirts and teases Violet now that he can mind talk with things like, you never consider I am here because it was you I couldn't stay away from. Mira then takes Dane and Xaden and she's like, okay, we need an intervention. Yelling at Dane for his petty behavior and then questioning Xaden about the mated dragon bond. The fight though, it's interrupted because it seems that griffins are approaching and Mira realizes that the words have fallen. Mira commands Xaden to get Violet out of the fort. Though Violet resists, everyone starts running and Mira is sent to the fight. Violet begs Xaden to let her stay, but he kisses her, distracted her long enough so that Tern can come and pick her up and take her as far as possible. And she is like, I will hate you for this. 2 days pass and now we're back at school. And as you can imagine, Violet, it's not good and she is ready to crawl out of her skin with worry about what has happened with Mira. She is waiting outside of the colonel's office to get information when Xaden appears with a coffee. And it seems that Segale told Xaden that, you know, she was not really sleeping, and that's very sweet. So she asked him, like, what has changed when you decided that you are not going to ruin me? And he's like, probably the first time that I kissed you, or maybe when I realized that I can stop thinking about doing more than kissing you. Violet then figures out how to speak with him telepathically, just as Stain also approaches. They all have the same idea. Colonel comes, Mira is alive, and Violet goes to her dragons and just cries of relief. Time passes and Violet starts to use her telepathic thingies to know a little bit more about Xaden, and you know, they start to get more close and the relationship seems to be evolving. We move forward now to May, and the school is preparing for the war games. Simulations meant to prepare the cadets for war and graduation. It's a little bit like Ender's Game, and Violet's squad is supposed to be fighting with Jack's squad, and it seems that the mission is a challenge. They need to retrieve a crystal egg, as same as they preserve a flag. The squad then takes off and flies defensively to protect their flag. Violet relaxes as she becomes used to the saddle. She becomes aware of Stern power increasing in her and worries that she may suffer the consequences of failing to manifest her signet. Another squad attacks Violet group, trying to find the flag that they are defending. Then Violet realizes where the crystal egg that Jack's team has is hidden, and she tells Xaden mentally. She is almost there when she sees Jack and sheathing his sword and jumping into Liam's dragon, ready to kill him. At that moment, Violet's like, Liam! Stern flies to help Liam, but Jack stabs Liam in the side before they can reach them, and Liam falls.
No!
It's in that moment when Andarna freezes time so that Stern can catch him before he hits the ground. A growing power sizzles her chest as she locks her gaze on Jack. Stern is climbing faster to them as she feels the power racing through her. She's convinced she's power is about to explode and that she's about to die, but she's like, if I die, I'm going to take this man with me. And she feels she is the sky and the power of every storm. She then calls down a streak of lightning that sends Jack falling to his death. It's in that moment when Stern roars full of pride,
Lightning, wielder.
They land in the field afterwards into what feels like a lifetime. Jack is dead. She has killed him, and she is kind of like feeling a little bit guilty. And it's morning, not because of Jack being killed, but because she is now different, because she has killed someone. And overall, everyone is happy that the fourth wing won this trial, and they don't really care if all the cadets die. So it's just like, yeah, they won, that's amazing. She dismounts Stern at the training ground and confirms that Liam survived. Then Stern and Adarna comfort her, insisting that she did whatever she needed to. One thing important is that every time that Adarna is stopping time, she is being drained. In that moment, Dane arrives and holds her. Violet, that was you? We have not seen a lightning wielder in a century. And he then tries to soothe her as she's feeling very guilty until Xaden appears. And Xaden is like,
We are better off without him.
that night, Violet is throwing daggers when Xaden appears. And she's like, what are you doing here? He responds, because I cannot seem to stay away. She confides her secret disappointment that her signet is related to something very violent. And he is like, that's all right, your life was supposed to be around books. You are not used to kill. This is the reasonable response, like you are behaving correctly. And then she surges and suddenly kisses him. His body goes rigid for 1 bit, 2. And then he spins them impossibly fast, putting them back against the door. Whoa, she says. Anyway, they then enjoy some sexy times described as a kind of desperation that isn't a natural, a wildfire that is likely to burn both of them if they allow it. For the sake of this video and for being everyone friendly. I will just summarize all of these with fade to black, but just know, if you want to relive these, that this happens in chapter 30. The emotion, the passion makes Violet use her lightning power several times during this sexy times, and she just like, it's burning trees, a lot of things happen, like everyone can see. And at some point afterwards, Xaden, it's like, don't fall for me, violence. Afterwards, she asks him about the scars that he seems to have in his back. He admits that there's one scar for every rebel child who was still alive immediately after the rebellion. As the oldest of all the children, he made a deal that he would personally be responsible for their loyalty in the Empire. In exchange, the children will be given the opportunity to serve in the Riders' Quadrant instead of being executed outright. And then Xaden confesses that he knew that she was going to wield lightning, and she's like, how? And he's like, because you already did this before, the first time that we kissed, which is very cute. When she wakes up though, she is alone, which not cool, but she finds in a nightstand a jar with violets. Afterwards, Professor Carr, it's like, now you can wield, so let's get and start doing something because you can hurt people. And it's in that moment when she is like, I don't really trust you, dear Professor Carr, you killed one boy, very quick. In turn, it's like, okay, let's try to trust him so that we can get better. And she then tries to manifest this lightning time and time again, but she does not seem to be able to do that. And Xaden realizes that maybe it's because her emotions are linked to the power, and he sends sexy images, and she's just like,
power, power, power.
Later, in her room, there's a knock at the door, and it's Xaden, and she's like, we're cool, this doesn't need to be awkward, we're both adults. And he's like, good, because I wasn't going to make it that way. I came to help you clean, because everything is kind of like bad. While cleaning, they find the folklore book from Violet's father, and they discover a letter that he wrote. And in that letter, he is like, remember that folklore is passed from one generation to another, and it only takes one desperate generation to change history. I'll know you'll make the right choice when the time comes. And he's like, what? After Xaden hints that he has a good idea on how to spend the night, and Violet's like,
No.
You said you don't want me to fall for you, but she does not really think that she can separate sexy times from emotion when it comes to him, so she thinks that she will fall if they spend that time together again. She hints that he is also falling for her, therefore the violets, the daggers, the training, the saddle. But here's the thing, regardless, she resolves that he cannot tell her how to feel or what to feel, but she is not allowing them to be together unless she is ready to risk her heart. A month passes, and Violet accuracy with the lightning does not necessarily improve, but she keeps training with both Turn and Xaden, which only makes for the tension and the slow burn to keep growing between the two. We are now thrown at this Reunification Day, which is kind of like a celebration of the rebellion, and it marks 6 years after the anniversary of Brennan's death, which is the same moment in which the parents of all of these people that tried to revolt, were caught, and all of them were murdered. There she realizes that Liam, that is always shadowing her, it's the only rebel kid in attendance, and it's because it marks a day where the rebels were executed. So from the rebels' children perspective, the event is a celebration of the death of their parents. In that moment, Violet and Liam are approached by their king, her mother, and General Melgram. They have a very uncomfortable conversation about power, and Melgram questions Xaden's loyalty and puts pressure on Liam, and he's like, but where is Xaden? What is happening here? But everything's like, yeah, it's there. A little bit after, she goes away from the party and she resolves to fight Xaden. She eventually discovers that she will need to go into the parapet and then find Xaden. Walking the parapet on Conscription Day, the first day, was a risk. But now, walking the parapet in a dress and barefoot, that is madness. And so that's what she thinks, but she starts nonetheless to advance one feet after the other. And then she realizes, well, I might be in love with Xaden because I'm actually doing all of this. And it's in that moment when she hears violence. What the hell are you doing here? You're going to be the death of me. And she's like, if I don't die by myself, you know, before. He drags her to safety, furious that she has put herself in reckless danger. But then she confesses her feelings and again confronts him with his feelings. She knows he wants her and that he is scared. And this is what I love about Violet. She is also scared, but now she's ready to risk her heart. But he is like, there's only you, violence. Is that what you needed to hear? And clearly yes, because she convinces him to get out of the parapet and takes him to her room where she admits that she loves him. There are more sexy times now, but they are interrupted when Garrick arrives and reports that an attack is occurring. We are entering in the final bang. They head to the courtyard and Xaden telepathically shares that they have been dragged out of bed for the last event in the war games. Not because there's been an actual attack. Xaden is ordered to select some riders and to be stationed outside of the borders of the Empire at Athebyne, where they will remain for 5 days. Dane is also assigned, but to a different outpost within the Kingdom wards, and he is to take his whole squad of first years. Cadets quickly pack and prepare for the long flight. Liam is unusually tense, and Violet spots Darna and grows concerned with her ability to keep up and hide because she cannot fly as fast. But then she sees that Xaden has also made her a small saddle that allows her to get connected to turn so that, you know, she can be there with them. After that, Xaden is like, I am constructing my headquarters and you're coming with me. And she's like, I am what? Dane at that moment pushes back, leading to a fight that basically culminates with Dane realizing that they are together. And he's like, you with him? Dane horrified look just lasts for a second before he quickly masked it. And it's like, if he is what to choose, then I guess that needs to be enough. I'll miss you. And then they go and start riding. They fly into the morning and then the afternoon until they cross the wards surrounding the Empire and leave them and just stop very near to Athebyne. There, Tyrion confirms that the magic is wilder here. Xaden, it's, you know, all of them are taking a little bit of a break and Xaden takes Violet into the forest for a moment of privacy and a little massage as well. And it's in that moment when they are found by griffin flyers. Violet has never seen a griffin before. They are half eagle, half lion. What happened to meeting tomorrow? Asks Xaden. The shipment isn't the issue, replies the flyer. Violet is still processing all of this. The betrayal cuts her through like glass as she tries to swallow. This is why Xaden was sneaking off the quadrant, it seems. Not cool. This flyer, not rider, as they do with dragons, it seems to be there to warn them about a horror of venim. This supposed to be folklore, imaginary creatures that are basically evil and that they hold magic. And once that the flyers leave, she surveys the squad and realizes that all of the cadets are children of separatists. And she's like,
Turn, all of them are carrying the rebellion relics.
And he's like, yes, I know. Violet then realizes that the only reason why all dragons were so chilled with the griffins, it's because they all knew. The glow of happiness, of love, of trust is now only pain. Were we even friends? She asked Liam. Xaden commands the rest of the group to leave And, he tries to explain a little bit the situation to Violet, but her power starts to slip. And she accuses him for treason, for working with the Flyers, and she feels so naive. Xaden is like, you're thinking I betrayed the kingdom, but that's not at all the issue. It seems that around this kingdom, the dragon power wards around Navarre prevent the venim, these dark creatures, from entering the Empire, but the surrounding areas are vulnerable to the attack. He tells her that the government of Navarre knows. Xaden insists that he keeps the secret from Violet because Dane might have seen his memory, touching her. And, he gives her an inscribed dagger, and she's like, look, how did you steal this from my mother? He's like, no, it's not from your mother. It's the only kind of dagger with the runes that is able to kill venim. And that's when she starts to think that her mom might be in it, that she knows everything. Turn into seeds. You have every right to be angry, Silver One. And, he tries to apologize because he's feeling guilty, as he should. They arrive at the assigned outpost to find that no riders are waiting for them. Everything feels off. It is one of the most strategic points Navarre has, and it doesn't make sense to abandon it for the war games. And that's the moment where Xaden asks, Violet, what did Dane said before we left? And she's like, well, he said that he will miss me. And Xaden is like, okay, did he ever touch you like this? And she's like, yeah, but he would have never. And Xaden is like, no, yes, he definitely took a memory from you. He knew that I was getting away, and this is not a game. We are here to die. Xaden reads the rest of the letter the commanders back at Basgiath gave him, and he tells the group that they have a choice. Either they flee and save themselves, or they remain and fight because the horde of venim are coming to this outpost. But the thing is that there's a lot of innocent people there, and they don't want these people killed. Liam, using his gift, which is that he can see long distances, sees this different venim horde coming, and the griffin flies come and stay with them. And they are like, okay, thank you for keeping us alive all of this time, but now save yourself. They learn that 2 venim were able to destroy a Poromial city the month before, so facing 4 will be a death sentence. Xaden is like, you are free to leave, but Sigale has never run from a fight, and today will not be her first. And then Tern says, we will feast on their bones. Violet commands Andana to hide in a very heartbreaking scene. As they prepare, they see a creature fly overhead, and only then Violet realizes that it is a wyvern, a 2-legged flying reptile created by the venim, and these are the only creatures that can also kill dragon. Xaden gives her a second rune inscribed dagger and tells her that General Melgrim, whose gift is to see the future, the outcome of war, cannot see the rebels' children because due to their relics, if 3 of these children are together, he cannot see whatever happens. 6 wyverns target Violet, and Tern led them away from the city, using her lightning to draw attention. Liam and his dragon are fighting viciously one of these venim, but things are not going good. Violet cries both to Xaden and Tern, Liam needs us, but Xaden is torn as he's also doing a very important job, as all of the civilians are going to die. Tern and Violet are on their own. Liam's dragon kind of like leaves Liam with Violet and keeps fighting this venim. And there's a moment in which Liam starts to cry, no, help him, he is dying. There's nothing that they can do. They keep fighting, and there's a moment in which the wyvern cries, roars in success as he eviscerates Liam's dragon just before this wyvern also dies. And something terrible has happened because Liam's dragon has just died. A dragon without the rider is a tragedy, but a rider without a dragon, that is impossible. So Liam is also going to die. Liam is dying, sends Violet mentally to Xaden, and then she feels his terror, his sorrow through the bond. Just hold on, Liam, says Violet, fighting not to cry as she tries to get him close to the dragon. At parapet next year, you need to take care of my sister, Liam says. And she's like, please no, you need to be there for your sister. Seconds later, Xaden appears, racing towards them, a torrent of emotions overwhelming Violet. And he's like, Liam, I'll take you to your dragon brother. And he basically leads him to his dragon, and a little bit later, Liam dies. And this is all very sad, but things are getting worse and worse and worse because they are seeing a lot of different wyverns coming at them. And so Violet and Xaden plot a plan. Xaden will distract them while Violet devotes herself to killing them. As soon as she gets close enough, she starts throwing lightning, letting all of her power loose. She kills a wyvern, but never sees the one coming from the left, not until she feels Tane roars of pain. Violet moves around in the saddle and sees how a venim has a stab turn and now is holding to the sword in turns scales. Violet unbuckles herself from her saddle and tries to fight venim. She's doing whatever she can, but one of the venims takes a poison dagger and just stabs her. She then uses her lightning power to illuminate the sky and disorientate the venim, who is now able to kill. Many wyverns die because of that, but still one remain. 3 are out, but the leader is still there. It's in that moment when Violet demands turn to channel all of his power. She's like, I don't care if I die, but this ends here and now. And Darna is in that moment also trying to help, and she's like, let me help. And Violet is like, okay, but only what I need. And Darna will live today, she thinks. And Darna helps Violet stopping time, and she channels all of Turn's power, and she takes that opportunity and kills the venim. However, because of the poisonous dagger, Violet is fallen. Turn roars, full of panic, and it's then when Darna stops time again with the energy that she has left and goes to catch Violet. Xaden holds her as she faints again, and it's the effect of the dagger. She comes to consciousness in time to hear the rest of the squad discussing her condition. Her blood has turned black and she does not really want to live. Xaden decides to take her somewhere close, although some of his squad members don't want him to do that. Hours pass before Violet wakes again, and she's convinced that dying is better than living in a body right now. She wishes they could leave her die. She hears then a familiar voice calling out Xaden, but she's not able to place it, and so she faints again. She will be alright, Sigil says to Xaden, because this is the first time that we have a point of view from Xaden's perspective. He keeps thinking about how he should have told her the truth before, and he really feels very, very, very guilty. Finally, Violet awakes, and it's in that moment when Xaden basically starts to think that he will not tell her that Andarna has now grown and it's now bigger. Violet touches her scar, which is now a silver wound. I thought I was going to lose you, he says. You aren't going to lose me. And then she leans in and kisses him. Then suddenly her eyes flare and something shifts. It seems that she wasn't really remembering what happened, but now she remembers. Violet looks out to the window, surveying the scattered remnants of the destroyed city in which they are, and she recognizes the location of the Tyrus capital. She starts to get a bit better and to remember everything, and she no longer trusts Xaden, but she believes in the cause and the existence of the venim. It seems after the flight, all of them discovered an iron box which they think is what the venim were seeking. Xaden promises to tell her everything and to do whatever it takes to regain her trust. Violet asks if it is possible that they were at the outpost accidentally, and then the door opens behind them and the person entering asserts that it's been intentional. Xaden steps aside and Violet beholds her brother Brennan. Welcome to the revolution, Violet, he says. Boom! And that's how this story ends. I hope you enjoyed this video so far. Let me know down below if you did. And thank you so much to my Patreons who joined the Ingwardian Society and are helping me to keep the book spirits alive by reading.